Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round interview show. Today we are joined by none other than former West Tigers CEO, Justin Pascoe.
Hi, Jimmy.
I'm doing very well. More importantly, how are you?
I'm doing very well as well, thank you.
That's great to hear. You were telling us about a recent holiday, a new style of holiday.
So I finished up mid to late December, which was sort of perfect timing in regards to. I'm a big believer that in sort of Australia from December 15 through to sort of the end of January after Australia Day, there's not a lot of productive work happens. And I had the luxury of being with my family for nearly the whole of January up at the Sunshine Coast. So to be able to be fully present, I was saying before that every holiday I had throughout my career, I've never put an out of office on. I've never turned my phone off. I've always tried to remain accessible, and certainly in the CEO roles that I've had. So I'm usually on the phone 3-4 hours a day and answering calls and taking calls and dealing with whatever issue may have arisen. To be present with the family and the kids and leave the phone at home and go down the beach for 3 and 4 hours at a time was heaven. Yeah, really heaven.
I think it's probably something that people don't appreciate. You, in a position of high power like that, or with great responsibility, like you pay a price and you have to be accessible all the time. Almost 24 hours a day. You can't flick your phone on silent on a Saturday night just in case something goes on with a player or somebody needs to contact you, right?
So in all my time, even working in other sports, like I never really had too many player-related issues. Friday, Saturday night was always a worry. End of season was always a worry. Heaven was always sort of that Christmas Day period because journos weren't working and players were usually with family and in a pretty tame environment. So that was sort of that one peaceful day of the year.
Well, I want to take you back to your beginning with your role at the Tigers. How did you land the role, and were you aware of the difficulty and the pressure and the scrutiny that comes with taking on such a role?
Yeah, so I was at Penrith at the time, and I remember going, it's like mid-year season 2015, and I went to Leichhardt, Penrith obviously playing West Tigers. And I was just looking around at the environment as you do when you go to an opposition ground, and it's not meant with any disrespect, but I looked at the staff that were walking around the inner sanctum of Leichhardt Oval, and they didn't look happy. Everyone was sort of a bit lethargic, and it just seemed to be going through the motions. And then the fans were turning that day because I think JT had moved Rowdy into the back row, and Dean Farray in the centres had scored like 3 tries, and they were screaming for it to be moved back. And there just seemed to be a lot of angst. And I sat there and thought about the brand and how big it was and the opportunity that existed. It seemed like it was a club that was sort of stuck in the 80s to me. It was only my perception at the time. So fast forward probably a couple of months, and Dave Smith had spoken to me about potential role at the NRL in the commercial department, of which I didn't want to. I think you're set up for day-to-day clubland or you're set up for a governing body. And I'm certainly set up for the rigours of day-to-day clubland. I enjoy that. So when I sort of spoke to him and didn't really show too much enthusiasm for that role, he said, you should speak to West Tigers. There's a role going on there. And as you probably know, back then they had some involvement in regards to the board at the time.
Ah, yes.
So he had put a phone call into the chair at the time, Marina Go, and said, I think there's someone you should interview. And she had said, well, it's closed. The process, I think, had closed. So he said, no, I think you really should interview Justin. So anyhow, I went in for an interview on I'll get these wrong, on maybe the Thursday night. So I went for an interview with a recruiter on the Thursday, then went for an interview with a panel on the Friday. And nothing was said other than we had an interview, and I thought the interview went reasonably well. And we played Canberra on the Sunday down in Canberra. And I think it was a 4 o'clock game, and I'm walking into the ground about 2:30 and I get a phone call from a journo saying, heard, you've got the job. at West Tigers? And I said, protecting what was meant to be an inner sanctum scenario. I said, I haven't even been for a job at West Tigers. They said, oh, no, we know you went to an interview on Friday and you're going to get the job. I said, no, I wasn't at an interview. Again, trying to protect the club that I was at, and also, the process of what's meant to be a confidential interview. He said, I'll ring you back and I'll just check my sources. The game started halfway through the game. He rings up and says, no, I'm going to go with it. I know you're leading the charge for the job. Anyway, so I'm driving back that night, call it 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and I get a phone call, and I think it was back page or close thereof of the Telegraph that I was going to get the job. I had no conversation at that point with the West Tigers or further conversation with Penrith out of respect. So obviously I had to ring the CEO of the group at the time, Warren Wilson, straight away and said, look, this has come out. I've had 1 or 2 interviews. I couldn't remember whether 1 or 2. I haven't committed to anything, but certainly I've gone through a process of having a look at this opportunity. He said, well, I'm going to have to basically stand you down until, things are resolved. I said, that's fair enough. I perfectly understand it. So then it just fast tracked from there, where they came back and had me in again for another interview. I think the pressure of me being back page and saying that I was going to get the job fast tracked the process. And on the Monday, they offered me the job. And on the Tuesday, I told Penrith that I was no longer going to be there.
Did any alarm bells start to ring?
No.
With that? Because, I imagine it would be on the assumption that this would be a tightly held secret and a need-to-know basis only. The fact that this has got to the press before it's been announced, did that not ring any alarm bells?
There wasn't alarm bells as such, because I was in with Penrith for 4 years prior to that. It is very hard to keep a secret in rugby league, as you know. More disappointment that it got out, but it happened so quickly, and I was still so focused on, there was a game day happening down at Penrith. And that Saturday and sort of Sunday up until that point, I hadn't heard anything back from the recruiter or the committee in regards to the next steps. So it was more just surprise more than anything, and then more disappointment that it got out for the respect that I had for the current employer being Penrith, because that's not how I would operate in regards to having something come without a conversation. As I said to Warren at the time, if I'd been offered the job, I would have come to you and spoken about it before I actually accepted the job. Yeah. Out of respect.
Yeah, because it does put you in that difficult situation.
Well, it finishes you up straight away, doesn't it? Which I understood too and perfectly accepted.
Yeah. But I guess for your current employer, the Penrith Panthers, it's a very difficult situation for them to be in, and it doesn't shine a very good light on you.
No.
But you move on, aware of the challenge of the Tigers, because it is a very, not unique, because there are other clubs in similar situations, but the 2 boards, you're the CEO. How does that work for you as a CEO? Because every football club has its challenges, but this is, it's very rare in the sporting world.
Yeah, so...
And sorry as well, be unheard of almost in a business world.
Yeah. To take a step back, in regards to the challenge, when I took on the role and people started talking to me about it, they were like, you're going to have these challenges, the geographical area, the 2 foundation clubs. And I always sat there and said, yes, there's challenges, but if you can actually apply the right amount of resources, there's actually an opportunity. And I've sort of always been at underperforming businesses to make them good, rather than go into elite performing organisations that are already at the top of the game and just maintain it. I just think it's a different type of a person around those that can deal with adversity with small resources to get things happening. So I always felt it was a real challenge to go there, and an opportunity, most importantly. So I never reported to 2 separate boards, so that the 2 foundation clubs had representations for 1 board, which was only West Tigers board.
Is it fair to say they were split board then?
I think in the early 2000s to sort of prior to me coming on, I think it would have been really challenging, because it was split boards and then it was rotating chairman from each foundation club. when I first started, there was 5 on the board, 3 independent and 2 from the west side. There was no Balmain representation at the time, as I was sorting out some stuff. Then it went to 9, which as a CEO becomes challenging in itself, having 9 people on a board. And there was always independence, and the independent person there was always a chairman that was independent. So I never felt that there was a lot of difficulties around West versus Balmain at that level. I think if you planned ahead, I used to question why our reserve grade side was West Magpies or Western Suburbs Magpies. I didn't see that if we were going to be in complete alignment that you would want to not have that as West Tigers. But that was sort of the only thing that I ever questioned in regards to the 2 foundation clubs. Otherwise, I was always adamant about being really respectful to the history, but also understanding that we are West Tigers and it's now generational.
Yeah.
So if you're, it's 24 years old now, if you're a 30-year-old, statistically with the NRL, you're making a decision when you're 6 and 7, you know nothing other than West Tigers. And as long as the organisation starts to think that, but always pay homage and respect to all those people that created the entities through the foundation clubs, I think it can work.
Yeah, I guess one of the challenges in terms of trying to please everybody, almost please nobody. You are the West Tigers, but it comes with 3 or 4 different home grounds. I think in my time playing in the NRL, there would be you'd play at a core stadium, and then the 2 individual home grounds. Then you've maybe got a game on the road in regional New South Wales. How do you manage that as a CEO? Because we know that the identity piece and connection to community is so important. You look at what's happening out there in Penrith now; like they are so connected to their community. There's a sense of pride. Must have been so difficult to even get that off the ground and keep momentum going. You have games at Leichhardt, but you want to capitalise on the momentum, but you can't because you've got 3 games there.
Yeah, so I think that was probably the biggest challenge that the club faced in my time there was the lack of identity. Prior to me going there was a deal done for, as a board you got fiducial responsibilities. There was a deal done with ANZ at the time for guaranteed money, and it was a 10-year deal. And it was to take a minimum of 4 games there, and it was for 5 years guaranteed and then 5 years unguaranteed. But that 5 years guaranteed put the club in a stronger financial position back when the decision was made. The contract had in the 4 games that had to go, they had to be a certain quality of opponent, namely Rabbits, Bulldogs, Parramatta, all the teams that were also co-tenants at the time and the big drawing crowds. That was great for that first 5 years from a financial perspective because there was no risk because it was guaranteed money. But in the contract also had that you had, like the opposition, members got in for free. They used their membership card to get in. So when it became non-guaranteed, with that still being in the contract, if you had 30,000 turn up to Acor at a Parramatta game, but 10,000 were our members, 15,000 were there, you're only getting $5,000, 5,000 patrons paying. And that wasn't covering the costs of that holding a game there. So I renegotiated with Daryl Carey at the time when, this is a long way to answer your question, by the way, but I renegotiated with Daryl Carey when the new stadium was being built at Bank West there, that they wanted content. I thought it'd be a great stadium for a new boutique stadium to bring our fans to and get away from having the current incumbent conditions of that contract to free us up financially. And we had to still play at it, 4 games somewhere. So we went there. Only now that the board made a decision through a recommendation of a paper I put to them mid last year that we go back to our suburban grounds. I think the lack of connection or loss of connection, not lack of connection, and that identity has hurt the club over the last 10 years dramatically. And I think Penrith is a really good example, but I think we did a lot of community work, but I think people need to connect, and you need to not only from a footballer's perspective, you want to have a fortress and not be playing in 5 or 6 different grounds from a coaching perspective, but you need familiarity and you need to make it a home where people are really proud. And I spoke to council this year about making sure that Leichhardt, like Penrith, when you go down Mulgara Drive, you got all the pictures up of the players and you paint, the team colours through all of the streets to make sure it's your home. So when the opposition comes and the opposition fans come, it's like, holy shit, we're in the home of the West Tigers here. And I think that's the opportunity they have moving forward. The challenge around that is Leichhardt needs investment to make it fit for purpose. And from an athlete perspective, from a fan perspective, as does Campbelltown. Not as much, but they both need investment. And the whole stadia strategy, I would have done it completely different, but I'm not in politics. But I think investing in those suburban grounds to make sure that they're at that level that they need to be to host not only the fan and give the fan the best experience, but also the athlete the best experience. There's nothing better at Leichhardt than the 80 minutes the game's on. Operationally, it's a punish to manage just because it is an old stadium needing a lot of upgrades.
If you looked at it from the outside coming in, you knew nothing about rugby league and its history. I think most people would say Campbelltown is the way to go.
Yep.
With the huge population there, the amount of potential for juniors coming through, more of a permanent base there. Obviously, emotion does get in the way of those difficult decisions, but is that something that you could see happening in the future, or something that you maybe would have liked to have seen more of a focus on the Campbelltown area and more of an identity piece there?
Certainly the recommendation in that paper was that the games would start to evolve from a 50-50 split into more at Campbelltown. Absolutely. That's the future of the club in regards to not only the pathway system, but also, political investment, growth of population out there. But it is a long play. So not only are there West Tigers fans there now, but because people move out there, they're not moving out there and suddenly going, oh shit, I'm going to stop barracking for the Bulldogs, I'm going to stop barracking for the Rabbitohs, I'm going to start barracking for West Tigers. It's a generational play for the next generation coming through. So that's where you got to do a lot of school programs, community programs, get the branding out there. And like when we went to Tamworth, if you play games at areas, you could have a development officer in Tamworth all year. People attach themselves when the big boys come out and play one game of football out there and do community, appearances that week. That allows fans to be inspired and motivated and look up to their idols. Not dissimilar to Campbelltown. You've got to start playing more games out there for that connection piece to happen. And you got to start winning games too.
It certainly does help.
Yeah.
But I think, if you had 10, 11 home games at Campbelltown Stadium, it starts to becomes part of family habits.
Yeah.
Youngsters' habits. I'm going to watch my Tigers team play. It's not forgotten about, because it can be forgotten about with so much time in between games. It is a very difficult challenge for anybody to negotiate. It's the same with the Dragons, with the Illawarra and the St. George piece. Like, I don't envy those people making the decisions, but sometimes tough decisions need to be made.
Yeah, and I think the club was certainly heading towards that was the plan. There's an academy that they've got now funded out there, which is going to be really important. Upwards of $46 million in consultation or collaboration with council out there and the University of Western Sydney. But just if you look at, in isolation of West Tigers, Campbelltown Stadium is set up for easy development because it's not landlocked. It's got a train line that pulls up right outside, and there's a lot of area that you can build infrastructure around, so it becomes a whole game experience.
It's an event.
It's an event, which we spoke off air about, the American thing, and I've been to a lot of American sport. You've got, and the biggest challenge with rugby league coming from Melbourne, where people attend everything just like that, is you've got to get people to games, and to do that, you've got to do that experience from couch to couch. So it's got to be transport in, it's got to be food prices, it's got to be ticket prices, it's got to be the entertainment, it's got to be the game, it's got to be everything, and cater for everyone.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see actually how that all develops and how it will look in 5 or 10 years. But when you first come in as your role as West Tigers CEO, what are your aims? What are you looking to achieve?
I probably didn't understand the depth of complexity within the operation of the business at the time that wasn't being done. And I'll talk to that in a sec, but I had 3 fairly simple, or not simple, but clear objectives. One was to create an environment or 4 objectives. One was to create an environment where people could thrive and strive and be the best version of themselves, both athlete and employee. 2 was to create some level of financial stability and improve the balance sheet from where it was, and no particular order, by the way. 3 was to create a new facility, because what they were operating out of the old Concord was not elite at all. And 4 was obviously to win a premiership and to put them in a position to win multiple premierships. I think we achieved 3 of those. Unfortunately, the one that still burns is the 4th one wasn't achieved. When I first went there, I set up a strategic planning piece where we got the whole organisation together, including football staff, outsourced a person to come in and sort of control the 2 days where we would speak about what are our key objectives, what are the external factors, what are the external environment factors, what's the competition doing, what do we need to do to be better, and then we'd come up with a list of strategic priorities, and then underpinning those strategic priorities would be action items attached to each. And then we'd have a traffic light system where simply you could look at it, I could look at it, present it every month, and you'd see green, obviously things being achieved, amber and red and so forth. I think in that first year we had 76 strategic priorities. Now that may, and a lot of business people will say, how can you have 70? But they're as simple as reconnect with people that hadn't been spoken to for 5 years at the club, because there was a hell of a lot of people that were influential in terms of financial that were disenfranchised with the club. So just going back to really simple principles, and it was that real survival mentality. Back when I started, we were managing debtors by paying some, not paying others, and trying to get through to make sure that always we're paying employees. To fast forward to now, where you've got 3 strategic priorities, because everything else is operational that's being done, and it's a core part of day-to-day operations, where the 3 strategic priorities are game changers that are meant to actually take the club to a different level. One of them was, by the way, continue to create a single identity.
Well, you've got this list of priorities, some goals to achieve, targets. What was your leadership style as CEO?
It's good. I think there's always got to be an element of being, I think it's autocratic, where you basically just say this needs to be done, this is what needs to be done, this is how it's going to be done. And I think when you're back at that stage of surviving, you need to take that leadership approach. We just got to get up and get shit done right. But I think I also evolved to be, I don't know what the terminology is, maybe transformational, where I was always big on making sure that people coming into the organisation, I knew what their aspirations were, and trying to make them the best version of themselves by creating an environment where they could thrive. I love to take people out of their comfort zone, but encourage them to do that. I used to have a saying that people used to get really sick of me saying all the time was, I really want you to do the right thing. The next thing I want you to be doing is the wrong thing. What I don't want you to be doing is nothing. Like, do not sit idle and do nothing at all. I'd rather you be doing something and making a mistake and learning from it than just sitting back and doing nothing at all. Be proactive, try and be innovative. If it doesn't work, we'll learn from it. But I really wanted people to come in and leave better people. And in a footy club, it's really hard from a structural perspective to keep on providing advancement opportunities because it is flat. So I was always really comfortable with young people coming in and spending 3 years, and we got the best out of them. And they went on to better and greater things for them. I thought it was awesome, but certainly transformational. I'd describe it as my leadership style.
Yeah. Well, you've got this leadership style. You've got you like action as opposed to inaction. I agree with you on that. In terms of part of the role as a CEO, you did so well commercially. How did you manage to achieve those goals commercially? Like what was behind that? It was always spoken about, even in recent years where the club was under scrutiny. It was always, well, commercially, the Tigers are flying.
Yeah, I think that needs to be put in perspective too. Like commercially, every year we did improve, which is really tough, as you could appreciate in sport when you're not performing on the field.
Yeah, so it doesn't normally correlate.
No.
It normally correlates. There's this, performance and commercial. It's goes hand in hand usually.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been, and we always planned, and no doubt we'll talk about football and recruitment at some stage, but I'd already planned in my head what that would look like, success on the field and how that would transfer off the field. And there's some clubs in Australian sport that have missed that opportunity when they are successful. And because they continue to invest so much, they haven't capitalised on the opportunity, and they've gone, they've had a year where they weren't making profit. And making profit was never my goal. My goal was to continue to invest back into areas of the business that gave them best opportunity to be competitive, i.e. football and pathways, which was our core business. I never stripped away costs out of the business. You can come into a business and automatically sit there and make two choices. You can strip costs out of the business to make you profitable or to make you more financially sustainable, or you continue to find other avenues to make money to then invest back in to improve capacity and capability, so you keep on improving and deliver results through having better capacity and people in the business. Setting up the foundation was a great thing for the club. Another source of revenue that generated a significant amount that we're able to apply into 3 different parts of the business. Still, the club, because of where it is in terms of on-field performance, is not even close to capitalising where it should be commercially. Like, there's plenty of room for growth in the value of the jersey. I think the hardest thing per yield in our membership was always having it split. Because if you look at places that have teams that have one home ground, like a Parramatta, like you're buying 12-game memberships.
Yeah.
With West Tigers, you're buying, because it was just, let's say we only had the 3 grounds, 4, 4 and 4 as an example, you're buying, not many were buying 12. Like they were buying 4, they were buying 4 at Leichhardt, or they were buying 4 and 4 or 4 and 4. So your yield per member, albeit you might have a reasonable amount of members, was less.
Yeah.
So that's the limitation of having split grounds, and that's where commercially you've got to get to one point. The other limitation is against other clubs when you've got the facilities that we had. Leichhardt has about 400 corporate opportunities. Bankwest has 3,000. That's a significant amount of difference in terms of every game day, your opportunity. So we were always trying to be creative about getting money from other areas. And I think that's the thing I'm really proud about, that we, with a lot of limitations, and I'm not crying poor, that was just a reality, and they're building towards removing those limitations. But with a lot of limitations, we were able to manage our way through having and employing more people than's ever been there, more money into the football program. We were spending, I think, about 60% of the non-football cap. They're now spending 100% of the football cap, investing into the community program. So I'm really proud of that. But certainly if I was there today, there's still a massive amount of upside, but that will correlate with on-field performance and that connection and the identity piece.
I just want to go back a little bit. You when I spoke about your leadership style, how difficult is it in a cutthroat environment where it's fans want to win yesterday to act in the long-term benefits of the club as opposed to the short-term benefits of you and the people currently in the organisation now?
Well, I think you're trying to win tomorrow or today. So from an on-field perspective, you're obviously always trying to work with the coaching and the football staff to make wins happen now. From a off-field perspective, you're always working in a balanced approach to create the best amount of opportunity for value in the business and to create sustainable. So it doesn't happen overnight. I remember having conversations with the board where I said, we've got to continue to invest, because what's going to happen is you might get peaks and troughs of success on the field, And if you look at Penrith as a really good example, like they continue to invest into pathways and they're going to continue to do that. And they did it for a long time before success came, right? But now they've got that sustained success. I said, even if you have a year of success on the field, you can't suddenly pull away again and think it's all done. You got to keep down that path of investment, because then you get that sustained success rate and performance. We spend now as much, if not, they spend now as much, if not more, than anyone in regards to pathways, because there's Western Suburbs, there's a Group 6, and there's also the Balmain in Junior League. So where some people are looking after one team in Mats and Ball and Flegg, we're looking after 3 different teams across that, plus the investment into the female pathways programs now. So it's substantial and it will be successful.
How long before you get some fruits from all the hard work?
They get the fruits?
They get the fruits. Because again, even just listening to your answer there, having so many areas to focus on, that comes with another set of problems.
But if you apply the resources that the right people are focusing on those areas, so I've always been a big believer that a coach should coach and that's all they should do. Now, that's not probably the coaching philosophy or notion of 10, 15 years ago, but businesses are very different back then. Like football clubs are very different now. They're $35 million, $50 million businesses. I always said to Benj, you need to just focus on coaching. Like that's what you're here to do. You coach, let me worry about the rest of it, and I'll sort out the head of football, the pathways, the investment, and all that. You obviously have a say in terms of talent and an enormous say. In fact, the final say. But in terms of your question, I had a lunch with the great Ronnie Palmer yesterday or the day before. He believes, and the club, 2022. Everything that went wrong could go wrong, right? It was just everything that possibly could go wrong. It was a year where just everything happened that we didn't want to happen. 23 was a really frustrating year because we actually thought we had recruited really well. We spoke about Batty before and a few of the others. Like our forwards, that first 6 games from memory, I think meters gained, we were against some of the teams were 400 and 500 metres more. We just couldn't convert when we needed to convert. So if you look statistically at the year, and the only statistic that matters, I know, is wins and losses, I get it. But still, you sort of be a bit more reflective and analytical around it. Our forwards and our back 3 carrying out a yardage were doing a great job. And we're getting down the other end. So it was clearly identified that we needed, some improvement in the halves, some changes in the halves. Benji identified the ones that he wanted. We went out and got the ones he wanted. You wanted the mature one in Aidan Caesar, the experienced one, 2 young halves in Fainu and Bud Sullivan, who have enormous potential. Wanted another strike centre. So obviously when I had left, we'd spoken about Justin Olam and that was on the table, but you couldn't chase Adam Fanua, Jerome Luai and Olam. It just didn't work salary cap. So until one dropped off, then you could go for Olam. And Samuela Fainu, big raw-bodied back rower. So even Ronnie yesterday was saying, or the day before was saying, that they're not far away. Bringing in the new coaching, Johnny Morris has some terrific principles around defence. The players have, I think have been freshened up with the new coaches. Heino is just the one individual that everyone loves, which isn't people say, well, you can't be loved as a coach, but you can be. You can be loved as a coach. You can be respected as a coach. You don't always have to be the one screaming, but I think Robbie's evolved dramatically in the time that I was there in that coaching. I think last year he was sort of 4th in line and didn't find that that it was his place to contribute, although he's got a lot of ideas that he wanted to share. Having conversations with him and certainly Benji having conversations, I think the fans should be really excited for what is ahead and the talent that's coming through. Like that match side that won 2-3 years ago, and they're all the Talon De Silvas of the world that are coming through now and have had a taste of first grade. They're all coming through, so I think it's a really exciting time. No doubt there's Jerome Buller at the back, another year of experience with him. So yeah, and I think the right decision, with all due respect to Adam Fanu. I think Adam Fanu is a terrific player, and wherever he goes, he'll do what he's been doing for umpteen years. But I think sticking with Steph and making him the focal point in the front row is a great move, because he's a great young kid and should be a future superstar of the game. So Fanua Pole, another great young kid. So there's plenty coming through. So
just on that, you said there previously around the coach's coach, and I've always been a believer in this. It doesn't always work this way. Coaches coach, players play, administrators administrate. How much conversation do you have with the coaching staff? So we've got, go back to Maguire, to Sheens, Benji. What's that working relationship like? And are we talking players, or are they wanting you to contribute? How does it work from your role as the CEO?
Yeah, most coaches are usually coming in asking for money for things, which was great, because I was never a CEO that if someone, even in the admin side, if someone came and said, I'd like to do this, or I need another employee, and they could justify that employee or that would add value to, I would do everything in my power to go and find that resource to do it, right? And it was just common sense and good business sense. In regards to, I spoke to the coaches. I'd always have weekly meetings with them, more around how they were going. You want to make sure that they're culturally okay,
like
well-being.
Connection to the person, as opposed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to, when I first started, I used to meet JT on a Sunday in Northbridge, just for a coffee, just to get that connection. I think it's really important to have that connection and respect. But with that comes, I never crossed the line at all. I was always really respectful that they coach, they know the talent. My role in the list management committee, I've found, was to be an antagonistic, excuse the terminology, dick at times, just to create some balance and some perspective, because I don't know if you found this, but coaches can go on and off players pretty quickly. And I've seen it. I've seen it for, 12 years in this game, where really successful coaches can come in one week and say, we need more back rows because ours aren't good. And then the next week they're going, oh, no, that back rows are great. We need, more centres. And just bringing balance to that and reminding them what they said last week, because sometimes the emotion of that training session just happened, or the emotion of something they didn't do at training. And also with the CFO having that ability to make sure that they're making decisions that are long-term and not just for, which is a hard balance, not just for their contract period, because you don't want the cap to be put out of shape as a consequence of them just going, I need to win now, and just providing balance. I never sat there and said to Benji, Tim, Madge or JT, mate, we can't get that player. He can't step off his left like I'd like him to. That's not my skill set. That's not what I was employed to do. They're employed to coach. Head of football is employed to do what he's meant to do as head of football. Recruiters are employed to recruit. Let them do their job. And I'll encourage, support, but also challenge when I think they're not doing the right thing for the club.
Did you feel unfairly criticised for some of those retention and recruitment decisions? I guess from a media point of view,
No, because I took it on board.
But how you're saying there you have a role, but not a massive role. I'm assuming it was a retention and recruitment committee.
Correct.
Would there be yourself, the head of football, head coach, head of recruitment?
So there was recruitment, head of football, coach, myself, a chairman represented by a board member, and CFO purely from a salary cap perspective.
And a player comes up, what's your role within that?
So we became
committee?
quite predominantly silence, listening to what's going on, but we became quite analytical and data driven around justifying decisions. So
what data did you look at? Like performance data?
Performance data, absolutely performance data, but also pathways and development. So if we've got 4 back rowers coming through, and our charts said that in the next, our depth charts had them coming through in 2024 and 25, and we had a rating system against them that we believe that they, if they are on the same trajectory, should be an NRL player, then why are we going out and getting a back rower and signing for 5 years at X amount of dollars? just that challenge. And then it's up to the coach to justify why they think that is a better decision for the now than what we're planning on doing. The NRL always provided a lot of data to all clubs. So you always had a benchmark about also this is what the top 4 clubs last year had on their salary cap, not by name, but they had X amount in the fullback position. They had X amount in the outside backs, X amount in the spine, X amount in the front row. And you didn't use that as a Bible, but you didn't want to go too far out of that. You didn't want to have, 8 front rowers and $800,000 each, because that just put balance away from what the top 4 successful sides are doing. So you always just sort of put that up to create some boundaries and some information for robust discussion.
Are you ever sort of saying we need to invest in this area, or we need to go and sign this player? Is it or
this
is your
type of player?
Yes. Are you saying this type of player?
So I'd always sit there to Benji and say, clearly, man, you're looking at our stats, you're looking at where we're short. We need to invest more in an outside back. So, recruiter, are you in agreement, Benji? Yes, we need an outside back. We're short, as an example. So then recruiter would come back and here's 6 outside backs that are available. And then the discussion would take place. But I would not be involved in that discussion about what that person from a talent perspective would bring. I always completely stayed in my lane in regards to that.
What about the person involved?
I'd always want to be a part of that discussion just in regards to culture and bringing a good person in and whether they're going to fit what we're trying to develop.
How difficult was it to say no? It's a challenge in any walk of life sometimes. That it's a very short word, but it can be so powerful. But it's sometimes difficult to be disagreeable, especially dealing with coaches. They've got their own ideas. Like, how did you find that?
And different coaches.
Well, and also, in the knowledge that you're having this retention and recruitment meeting with a person that you might have some inside knowledge that may not be there in 6 months, 12 months' time.
And I think that's probably answers the question that for me it was never difficult to have robust discussions as long as the purpose of those discussions were in the best interest of the club. I never, and I'll answer your question about the media, I never felt afraid to have a full-on argument, not an argument, but a robust discussion in those meetings and then walk out and hold a grudge to that person. I always encourage that. You shouldn't be, if you're being respectful in the way you're having those robust, if 2 people agree, only one person's thinking, right?
Well, it's a dictatorship
But if 2 people are agreeing on everything, there's only one person really thinking about it. The other person just says, yeah, okay, no worries, right, good. You want that robust discussion back and forth because that's where, if you prosecute something properly enough, you're going to get a better outcome, hopefully. So I was never afraid to sit there and have those conversations and say no. And we had some great, robust discussions. And different coaches, you work out on different coaches and their personality, how to get the best out of them and how to approach those discussions. But I would also hope, and I think this happened, that none of those coaches would ever be afraid not to have a crack in those meetings at me too if I was saying something that they were in disagreement with too. Because I had a fairly, back to my leadership style, very open door policy. I'm a fairly casual person in regards to most things in life.
I think every football club would have those robust discussions. It'd be naive not to think that. I guess with your role in it and the media scrutiny, it seems disproportionate.
Well, I felt that the media scrutiny, and I never looked at much of it at all. I never looked at social media. I had mates that would send me different things on social media and thought it was hilarious.
But you wouldn't look at your 360s, your
No.
NRL Tonight, those sorts of shows?
No, never.
I reckon all coaches and CEOs say that, but secretly they do.
I never did. For the last 6 years of my tenure, no.
Okay. But it would come back to you about your name as being...
Jimmy, every night it was on. I would name the people. I would have the people in the club ring me and go, are you watching this? And every single night I'd go, no, I'm not.
Okay.
And I don't think I was ever treated unfairly fairly. I thought it was weird that people spoke about me as a CEO and not many other CEOs ever got a mention about anything. Like I went on a holiday once and I know 2 other CEOs and I know journalists knew 2 other CEOs were on a holiday at the same time overseas, and I wasn't even overseas, but it was front and centre for a lot that I was on holiday.
Yeah.
I just found it very weird that certain areas of the media seem to be focused on me a lot. But I also get that happens at a club where you're not performing on the field, right? So
It's an easy hit. It's some
an easy
low-hanging
hit.
fruit. Performance, the CEO's away.
yeah,
Because I was going to ask you this a little bit later on. Like you came under a lot of scrutiny, but you're not the one missing the tackles. You're not the one knocking the ball on the first play.
yeah, no, but I mean, when you sign up to be a CEO, we had this conversation at the start. When you sign up to be a CEO, I took the role on knowing that I need to be the one accountable for everything. And other people may have said it's not Justin missing the tackles. I never said that. I always sat there and said I take full responsibility for what happens on the field and off the field. What would only ever frustrate me was things like, Isaiah Papali'i, great signing. Other players, if people deem they weren't a great signing, Justin did that. But when Isaiah came on board as a great signing, it was never Justin did that.
Yeah.
Or, something happened at the club that was a positive. It was, club's going well. Is it a negative? Justin. So just that consistency, why I always found it, because the same process has happened for what was deemed to be a successful signing as it was deemed to be not a successful signing. The process has never changed.
Just the results.
The results changed,
the success rate.
I think what I think that club and in my time, and you may have a different view as an elite player, but I always felt that the best clubs have stability. And stability, front office, board, but most importantly, stability in coaches. And you see that today with the clubs that have been successful, the coaches that are there for a long time. And you look at the Roosters, the Storm, and now Penrith. But also stability in the roster. And I think clubs, and we spoke about adversity and how people react differently to adversity. I think if you're under pressure all the time for results, the challenge is around board and coaches and everything else, making decisions that aren't always changing things over and sticking with some things, because a lot of the time on the list management committee, from representation from the board, you'd get things like, we need to change this person, we need to change that person, we need to do this. You don't need to change 16 people every single year. We've clearly come in as for 23 with gaps that we've identified. We've all agreed on that. We've had the coach present that. Let's just stick to making sure we go out and execute what we've all agreed to do, and then work our ass off as a club to get the best out of the players that at one stage we really believed in, instead of always trying to look for, because what often happens is you can have all the strategies in the world from a recruitment and retention, but someone becomes available and it's like, got to get him.
Yeah, it can change pretty quickly.
And you need to adapt and be flexible, but not every time.
And there's some things that are long-term decisions, and there's some short-term decisions, and there's some, an Adam Fanua Blake asked for a release, a Cooper Cronk is coming back to Sydney.
Absolutely.
It's a shit show, and it's a jumble, and everybody jumps on. Just before we go back to retention and recruitment, you spoke about what makes clubs successful. I think that there's so much that goes into it. Like, there's a lot of things that contribute to the ingredients. Sometimes one thing is missing, which, your cake doesn't rise. Sometimes there's too much of one thing and your cake overflows. One of the things is the media narrative. Now, people can laugh it off and say it doesn't matter, but it does. And clubs that have good control of media narrative tend to be successful. Probably the counter argument to that would be the Melbourne Storm, that maybe they get, the unfair share of negative press based on tactics, whatever. And there's probably a reason for that. The Sydney, Melbourne. I think
I would have happily taken their negativity.
Yeah. Well, I think so. For you, example, at the Tigers, you're out there in the warm up in the tracksuit, just mucking around with the football, right? So what? I'm gonna have an educated guess. Any of the other 16 other NRL clubs, CEOs doing that, nothing's made of it. But the media came for you in that instance. Now, you can laugh it off and say it doesn't matter, but I think it does, because the effect that then has on the players that are seeing that, when people talk negatively in a media sense, it ripples effect. It affects their fans, the opinion. He shouldn't be doing that. The atmosphere can turn quite toxic, and it's very difficult to recover from that. And the people in the media have a huge responsibility, but they also have a huge ability to affect what happens on the football field.
So when you said I laughed it off, you asked me the question, did it affect me? I said it didn't affect me.
But it affected the club.
But I always felt sorry for the fans. I felt sorry for the workers that worked in the club. I felt sorry for the players. I felt sorry for all the people that bust their ass every single day working their ass off to be the best version of themselves, to make the club the best version of themselves. I think you had a crack at me. Someone sent me through something that day. Why is he in the change rooms and why has he got a suit on? I should represent, as a CEO, you should always be in a suit. Now,
did I say that?
Yeah, I think so. Which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I respect the journalistic world, 24 hours news cycle. And West Tigers, again, is a massive brand that covers a huge area where subscribers and papers and all that are sold. So I get it. Was I happy with all the negativity? No, absolutely not. It used to drive me nuts. Do you respond to every single thing just to give sometimes the media what they wanted, so then there'd be more fuel put on the fire, so to speak? No, you had to be careful and balanced around that. We had independent people advising us at times in my tenure there about how to control the narrative. But yeah, I mean, that I never went on the field again after that because of that reason that, and I was surprised by that because I used to, Ivan Cleary, because of my AFL background, used to sit there and say, can you go out and kick and warm up with the players when I was there at Penrith and at West Tigers. No one ever said anything then. So this was 2.5 hours before on an away game at the Broncos with staff just out there, and someone had a ball, so we're having a kick around. The staff came up after it and said, we love how accessible you are.
Yeah.
That I was on that same trip. I'm the one who's there because I want to be a part and be respected. I'm lifting bags off the bus. I'm carrying bags in, but I'm not being a fan or being around the players because I want to be around the players. I'm trying to be around the staff to see how operationally it works, to see logistically if there's things that can improve. As a CEO, you saw more around culture and cliques within a group when you travelled with the team. Because I never went to training. I'm not there to watch training. I'm there to pop in every now and then to show a face. But I used to enjoy travelling with the team because you actually saw about the little cliques and about how coaches dealt with players and how coaches dealt with staff and how staff all worked together from a cultural perspective, because that was really important to make sure that you were across that when any recommendations or reviews were happening. Being in the sheds, I'd go in on away trips because I'd never go and sit in the opposition corporate. I'd rather sit down on the sideline or in the crowd somewhere. And then I'd go into the sheds to see, trying to be in the background and not see players see me in there. And when I got done with my phone, he had finished. I'd never sit there and be disrespectful and sit there on a phone. The picture was, unfortunately, that he was still talking to two players there, but everyone else had left.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not stupid that when there's that much media attention about that, I never went out on the field again.
I think it was the phones thing I'd said something about because
you said why are CEOs in the sheds?
No, not CEOs in the sheds. I think it was the phone. But again, probably a still, and not understanding the full story. But I think you're turning me on terms of the full story, and I agree. CEOs, hands-on, showing that no job, you're not too good to carry the bag, or not too, like, you should be in the dressing room. You should be wanting to know. You should be in those moments of extreme pressure, observing the coach, the players, who's responding, who's not, because that's
a really important one there. Because I know out of the coaches that I've been a part of, that there was seeing how they responded to the coaches at different times after different results gave me an enormous insight to where I felt, the sheds were in regards to were they behind the coach or not. And that just allowed me, because it wasn't me who made the decisions on the coaches. That wasn't part of the delegation of authority. It was the board. But it allowed me to actually have contribution around things that they wouldn't have seen, which I think was really important, rather than just having a decision that's made at board level. Yeah. Let's actually add some real value to it.
Some insight, some actual factual insight that you've seen. Look, he's lost the dressing room. Or, no, actually, he's still got the dressing room. Yeah. One of the things I want to ask you is, could you talk about narrative? And I've been involved with some people who are experts at this, about with the public coming after you, not the public, the press coming after you, the Tigers. If you had your time again, could you change it into a siege mentality? And did you have the identities to drive that? Like, look, boys, they fucking hate us. They can't wait for us to fail. Like, let's give them nothing other than the toot and just say, shove it up yours.
So we certainly, and you could ask staff there and players, there was many times I had conversations around when adversity hits. And I used to say to people all the time, because journalists are very good at what they do, that when adversity hits, and it was hitting us a lot, that the best thing we can do is stick together, trust each other, respect the process, be really honest with each other and robust with each other, and don't fall into that woe is me, or don't fall into self-interest. Because I used to say all the time that the one thing we can do, if our chain's not broken and our links aren't broken, we're all in this together, and excuse the language, but fuck the rest of the world, which is what I used to say all the time, we can do this. And people can't get in and infiltrate and affect what we're building. And if we can truly trust each other and respect each other and agree in the process, which came down to myself and the coaches to articulate what that process was and what the objectives were, then let's just stick this out together. But not everyone's like that, unfortunately. So when adversity hits, I could see times where people would go back into a silo, and as soon as that happens, then there's a little chink in the armour, and that's where that chink starts widening and people start looking after themselves only. And in a club where, in any organisation, if you're not all working in alignment together to get to a common goal, you're either going to struggle to get that goal, it's going to take longer to get to that goal. And that's when I go back to being really committed to what we're building. Sometimes you don't make decisions on the back of a big loss. I used to sit there and say to everyone, do not talk to people, anyone. Like, do not answer your phone when we've just been beaten 50-0. Because you're going to come out and say emotional things. Don't make decisions on the back of that big loss. Sleep on it. Let's regroup tomorrow and let's work through what we need to work through then. But that siege mentality, we tried, maybe not as fierce as we could have hoped, what we could have hoped for. But yeah, that was probably the lack of identity, and then the constant media, because players, back to that stability piece, when there was 4 weeks or 6 weeks of calmness, the world was a different place environment-wise internally there. Then something would happen, there was a big loss, or there was 2 losses, or something would happen, and the media would be back on us. And it must wear players down. I think to your point, a lot of players say, no, we're here to play. Coaches say we're here. But it does wear people down. And certainly I was not saying that. I acknowledge that it had effect across, and it rippled across. with our commercial partners too.
Yeah.
I'd have to go and talk to them often about and instill confidence in them in the direction we're heading. Because if you just listen to the negative narrative, you can lose focus on what we're actually trying to build here. And that was one of the big challenges all the time.
Well, I think that's one of the real benefits of having homegrown products come through, where it's like, I care about this club and they're coming after this club.
I care about the jersey.
I care. And I don't want to see anybody at this football club attacked. If they're coming after you, they're coming after me.
Yep.
So let's have it. Let's go. Boys, let's get out there and do something and give them nothing to write about, in my opinion. But just quickly to segue into the connection piece, alignment piece and recruitment. Obviously well publicised last year, the Tigers bringing in Fulton over from Manly to be a part of to be head of recruitment. Now, it was reported that this was the decision that the coach at the time, Tim Sheens, and Benji Marshall, the coach in waiting, weren't consulted with. Is that the correct version of events?
Yeah, so I think it came on the back of... So some of the board members were reached out to by an individual about Scott. They went and met with Scott, and then there was some more board members. Then I went and met with Scott, and there was a decision at the board at that time not to inform the coach. I think it's one, though, that was regretted pretty soon after. I think where we were at in terms of landing some big name players, at the time the club was really going hard for Mitchell. That was taking some time, the negotiation. Once you put a focus on a player and an amount next to that player, you can't...
Going after Mitchell
Moses.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do anything with that money. Like, you can't sit there and suddenly go, we're going to go turn left here and go for this player, because that money you're sort of in discussions with. That took a long time. And whether he was coming or not, or never coming or not, we've all got our opinions on that. The one thing about Scott Fulton, and I really like Scott, so I'll caveat this, is that Scott is pretty upfront, and he will get to a resolution, yes or no, very quickly. And then if it's a no, guess what? We're moving on to someone else. And I think that's really important for a club to be able to be in that position, to not wait and always be the bridesmaid waiting and having others leverage you. And I think we've probably been the bridesmaid a few too many times in the past. So, Scott coming in, I think for what Scott bought and could bring as a recruiter was a benefit for the club. The way he was brought in, I think most people would say they regretted how it was done and would not repeat how it was done.
How did you inform Benji and Tim?
Phone call.
How did it go down?
As expected.
It was destined to fail.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you confident that they've learned from that mistake?
Well, I think there's only one person remaining. So
yeah.
I think once anyone makes a mistake, you would hope, and I was never afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And
we all make them. So
it's, I think, to your question, if you continually repeat making the same mistake, that's when it becomes a problem. So I would hope that everyone in that organisation that played a part in that would not make the same mistake again.
Because again, I speak about the power of the media and the narrative. That was just... The headlines were written for them.
Yep.
The opinion pieces were made. There was no work need to be done by people on your opinion shows. Your social media comments didn't need much thought. It was there.
And sometimes when you you make the bed or lay in the bed, whatever the saying is, you've got to actually cop it, sweet.
You as a CEO, did you ever think to interject to the board and say, hang on a minute, team. We need to be aligned here. Like, if one of our values is alignment, if we know the value of alignment, we know the value of, like, what dogs aren't barking yet. So if we go ahead and bring Fulton in, the Sheens and Benji dog will bark, the media dog will bark. Like, it's, the not even unintended consequences, just what can we expect to happen from this? Surely some foresight would have predicted this. Like, did you think, but guys or team, we need, if we're going to go in this direction, then we've got to bring Sheens and Marshall in.
I think there's certainly consequences discussed at that meeting about what would happen if we went down that path.
Yeah. But that's what you can say. Fair play. You spoke about the bridesmaid, being the bride, perhaps even being used sometimes by player managers. What was it that you feel made the Tigers struggle to land some of those big marquee players? Now, I know the counter argument to that will be, well, we got Happy Coruscant, amazing signing. But I'm thinking to people, your Latrell Mitchells of the world, when it was reported he was offered a substantial sum of money to come to the Tigers. What do you feel was lacking?
I think all the things we just spoke about, on-field success, probably a lack of stability and too much noise in the media. I think that those three things make it really challenging. I could talk individually to certain things that happened through the processes that I felt we'd lost the player. My personal view is I don't think, and it's not being disrespectful to either party at all, I think that Madge and Latrell were never going to suit each other, personally. Not saying that we didn't go after Latrell, but I just thought that they were never going to, Latrell's got a different way of going about football. Madge's got a different way of going about coaching to what I think they both have, and I think they were just too far apart. And I think Latrell went to where Latrell should have gone. I'm trying to think of the other ones now.
Mitchell Moses recently.
Yeah, again, I don't think he was ever going to leave there. That's my view. And, you respect players for making the decisions they do too. And there's certainly always, not that you can tell, but there's going to be times too when player managers are playing you off against other clubs to get the price up. And sometimes you can see in articles straight away where it's come from. Like a lot of the conversations or the money that was spoken about in regards to someone like Mitch, we never spoke about internally at all. But it was obviously working in their favour to get, the team that they wanted to go to either extend a year or... And that's how the game works.
It's the game.
That's how the game works, and that's their job.
The game within the game.
Which it's... I remember talking to Danny Badiris once when he was up in Newcastle, and it was maybe after our game, and we sort of shook hands, and he said, man, I thought it was brutal on the field. It's brutal off the field. I'm saying it is. But that is a game, and it's like, I respect the player managers for what they've got to do. The good ones are really good, but it is a game, and it affects certain outcomes in the game, and it disrupts the game. But in the end, they're working for their client, and that's what they're paid to do, as journos and the media are paid to make sure they're getting as many stories and clickbait through as possible. So we all understand it going into it. We're not blind by it.
We're just going to take a quick break to talk about friends of the show, AG1. Now, taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should at least be simple. That's why for the last 2 years, I've been drinking AG1 every single day, no exceptions. It's just one scoop mixed in water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel energized, focused, and it really takes away that mid-afternoon slump that I used to suffer from. It was awful, but now thanks to AG1, it doesn't happen. It delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, and more. It's powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. Healthy aging shouldn't feel complicated. The thought of taking multiple supplements, pills, protein powders, etc. sounds exhausting, but just one daily scoop of AG1 covers my nutrient gaps and supports my mental and physical health without any hassle. In just 60 seconds every morning, I know I'm giving my body what it needs and setting up sustainable habits in the long run. We are so grateful to have AG1 as a partner of the show. And if there's one product that I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. That's why we've partnered with them for so long. So if you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/buy round. That's drinkag1.com/buy round. Check it out. In your time there as CEO at the Tigers, you had an NRL first, which was the hit docu-series Tiger Town, which was an access all areas, cameras in behind the scenes. It's the way a lot of sports are going, but it was an NRL first. So we've got the F1 Drive to Survive, the All or Nothing, the Hard Knocks, the Sunderland Till I Die, which was amazing documentary. It's sports are allowed. We see the countdown to the UFC, the boxing do them. It takes fans in behind the scenes, but it also it's what fans want. And I think there's a lot of credit should go to the Tigers because you don't. It's the ultimate reality TV going behind. I think professional sport goes behind the scenes, and it was great to see what goes on. I know speaking to people in the street, friends of mine who NRL fans, they got to see what really happens instead of speculation. Do you think you get enough credit for doing that? And also, what was it like getting that one past Mr. Maguire, who I know is, all coaches very secretive. They can't be showing what's going on in the coach's box, whatever.
Yeah, so credit isn't what I was after. The notion behind it was, again, part of my leadership style, and I was always encouraging innovation. I thought it was a fairly innovative and brave approach by the whole club.
NRL first, right? There's nothing being done.
And keep in mind, Jimmy, you got to make this decision well in advance of what the outcome of the day-to-day or the weekend results would be.
So when are you making the call? When do you actually present the pitch to Fox? Or when do you
presented it halfway through the year before. I actually just watched Sunderland Till I Die, and I thought, and I'd known for a while that I always wanted to do something like that and connect the fan, and not just the West Tigers fan, but connect the rugby league fan. I think the fan is starved. I mean, you look at cricket today as an example, and to when I grew up watching it, to see them during their drinks break with the camera come down and talk to them as they're having I reckon that's phenomenal.
It is.
That's phenomenal TV. And for the athlete to be told to do it or approved to do it, it's where world sport is going. And I went to Steve Crawley, who I had have a good relationship with, and I pitched it a little bit different to probably how it ended up. I pitched it more to be like Sunderland Till I Die. I thought it would always be fascinating because I think most people get access to training footage, obviously playing footage, what happens in the gym. I thought it would be fascinating. If I was a fan, which I am of many sports, I'd love to see what's happening in team meetings. I'd love to hear what's happening in the list management meetings. I'd love to hear what's happening one-on-one with the coach and myself, or the coach and a player. I'd love to see what's happening at our board meetings around certain decisions about stadia and the importance of, creating one brand on connectivity. I'd love to sit there and see what's happening with our fans, because our fans are as passionate as anyone, but following a fan on game day, walking down towards Leichhardt or walking over the bridge to Campbelltown, and seeing their emotions and how they feel about the result, and which Sunderland I thought captured beautifully, going to our fans where Sunderland had some really tough conversations about where Sunderland was at the time through dropping down with the system they have over there and addressing the fans. All those things I thought would be really great experience for the normal fan to come and see and get an insight. Madge, obviously you had to go to Madge first. And Madge, as you said, like all coaches, they're very protective, as they should be. And I was always very respectful. It took some convincing, no question about it. Some influencing, some careful influencing. But Madge is also someone that is aware of the bigger picture as a club as well, and he understood that. And I couldn't thank him enough for that.
Well, you show your vulnerabilities, right? I think people relate to that.
Absolutely. You're exposing yourself massively.
And I think people can respect and connect.
Which was part of the process. And people want to understand that coaches, players, staff, clubs are vulnerable, and there's emotions that run high. And, I always thought it'd be even interesting to have like our membership team answering phones the Sunday or Monday after a loss.
Yeah.
Because they're the first ones, the receptionist's the first ones that gets the angry fan, right? It's not the coach, it's not the CEO. I get some interesting emails. But no, credit to Madge. Madge and the football staff were always great. The players, then we had to go to the players to make sure they had buy-in, and we got buy-in by the players. And there's certain things that, we wanted to remain confidential, and there was sensitive information that, and Fox were very good in not showcasing that. But man, Fox went and invested an enormous amount of resources and money into a new camera and technology that allowed them to be far enough away from the players but still getting close to training sessions. My only thing, I would have loved it to be more like the original pitch, but I also understand why they went football because, results weren't going well. There was getting more emotions from players and Madge and that, and it became really riveting TV for that aspect. But the notion, certainly, the original notion wasn't that. It was more Sunderland Till I Die and showcasing all the things that you don't often see. But, we spoke off air before, seeing Madge in the coach's box and seeing the raw emotions and frustrations and excitement at the other end when things do go well, I thought it was great footage.
It was amazing. I'm surprised no other team is elected to do it. Obviously, the Dolphins had their sort of...
What I would have loved to have done, being the commercial person, would have loved to have had enough money to do it ourselves and then sell it. And not just domestically, but sell it overseas as well. That's what that was the original aim. But as you know, being a media celebrity as you are now, the cost of production is enormous. And what Fox put into it, I'm internally grateful. Were there negativities as a consequence? Yes, but the negativities weren't because of the production. The negativities were because simply we weren't having a good year. And again, it just, it showcased that more than what we would have wanted it to.
So overall, a net positive?
I think so. Others people may not.
Really? Do people... What was the sort of...
I think there was some commentary around some harshness of some of the vocabulary in that, does young kids want to be seen to be going to a club like that? But,
in terms of the coaches box?
Yeah, but my view was that I think people would be, most organisations and coaches across all sports would speak with the same passion that was shown on that documentary. And
use the same language. I think anybody with those sorts of comments need to watch a game of football because the camera would pan to the coach's box to see the reaction. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if someone's saying clucking bell or fucking hell after your team's just been scored against, does it? So,
I still think there is, though, room for... Maybe we could partner up with your little production company you got going here, but to do something that is more than just the playing or the coaches.
Yeah.
Like the whole club aspect. Because, we spoke a lot about recruitment and retention and the processes. I reckon the true fan does want to understand why we chased Appy, and what are the conversations we had about Appy versus the conversations we had about not going after someone or saying no to someone or not extending someone.
I think that would be genius.
Even things like I had a funny story, which you've played with some no doubt annoying players.
Yeah.
And two of them come to mind with Mick, Innes and Grubb.
Yeah. Josh Reynolds.
In a good way annoying, in a banter way annoying. Not they're good for the clubs and everyone needs one. When Big Clem came to our club, I sat there and said to him, how are you enjoying it? Yeah. I spoke to him a couple of weeks later, how are you enjoying it, as I passed him in the hallway. And he goes, I said, who's anyone annoying? I'm assuming, playing with Grubb, there can't be anyone up there. He goes, oh my God, Brett Naden. Brett Naden, he's a different level. Again, in a good way, like good, healthy banter. But he just yaps non-stop, right? And my office was above the gym, and you could see him going around. He's just one of those blokes that had always energy. So he said, we've got to do something about it. I said, send him up. Just wait half an hour and send him up. So we're sitting there. Again, this would have been good on camera, like for people. So I had my EA at the time in there with me, and I said to Claire, I said, when Nato comes in, because in my office I had on one, the glass that overlooked the gym had no blinds or anything, but the one that faced back towards the rest of the staff, the administration, had blinds, which I'd never pulled down at all, ever. Again, back to my open door policy and making sure everyone knows they're welcome in at any time. And I said, and when you go, make sure that you get up and sort of look like you're really stressed or distressed and walk out and sort of brush past him. So Nato comes in and she does perfectly, walks out. He sits down and I get up and stand up and pull down the blinds and, you can draw them shut.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there and he's like, I said, dude, seriously, what the fuck did you do on the weekend? And he's like, nothing. I said, no, mate, seriously, don't lie to me. What did you do on the weekend? And he's going, yeah, no, nothing. I said, mate, seriously, I'm here to protect the club and you, but if you don't tell me the truth, how can I do that? Like, that's my role. Just fucking tell me. I know what you did. He starts seeing sweat beads forming on his forehead. And he goes, I went down to Wollongong with my newborn and my partner. We just went for a drive. I said, mate, last chance. This is your final chance. And I just couldn't keep a straight face anymore. Mate, he was sweating. He's sitting there, his palms were sweating. So anyway, hopefully things like that stopped him from being the menace that he was.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But seeing insights like that into a club, I think fans would love.
Mate, 100%. Like less of the coach's box, the football. More.
Well, you see that now.
Well, even with the, think back to Sunderland Till I Die with the Jack Rodwell. He's going, he's not. Like the emotion in the room where they think they've got him off the wage bill, and then I can't remember, the club pulls out or he decides he doesn't want to go.
But even the families they captured really well.
Yeah.
Because often, as you would know, it's not just the player, but it's the player family. Like you talk about the media scrutiny. I never, ever felt affected personally by it until it crossed the line and someone said something about my wife, which they did.
Oh, really?
Or my kids at school would come home and go, oh, Dad, you should have heard what, little Jimmy or little Susie said to me today about what they read. That affected me because they're loved ones which should never be touched and untouchable in regards to my world. And there's a fine line and a line that needs to be adhered to and respected.
Absolutely.
But back to Sunderland, I think there is absolute room for that to happen because I think the fans would love it. And if you had a really quality production and you had a club that was willing to do it and get to different avenues and areas, it'd be awesome.
Well, I guess whatever way...
By the way, I've just patented that, so no one wants to steal it.
Well, I guess whichever way the wind blows or the cookie crumbles, like you can create heroes, or if things don't go well and that real insight, you humanize it.
Correct.
Correct. You look at the person, not the player.
Correct.
When you go home and or the person, not the CEO. You go home and the kids are upbeat, but then they're coming home from like capturing that. I think.
Well, it normalises too.
And would send us. People could relate to that. I think.
So, I don't know if you saw the recent quarterback series.
No.
So it follows 3 quarterbacks, of which one's Mahomes. And if you're talking about normalising, well, this is probably the biggest sporting identity in America at the moment. He goes home and the first thing he wants to do is pick up his child and bath his child. That normalises it. That gives a really good perspective to the person that doesn't know what he does when he gets home and what you would have done as an athlete going home and what all these guys do and women.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
It is. I've not seen that, but I'll be sure to watch.
That's good.
I think it brings a connection piece to the fans and members as well, which again about narrative, the feel, the atmosphere. It can make a huge difference.
I also think too that one thing I learned is that I used to take a trip over to America with some corporates every year for best practice and benchmarking and looking for innovation or what's happening over there, and also building continual relationships with some key stakeholders of the club. So it was always good. But I remember going to the Jets game one time, and they gave us access onto the field during warm-up. And I still remember taking a photo like a 10-year-old kid as they were warming up, sort of a selfie with the players behind me. And at the time I was with my chief commercial officer or chief operating officer. And I said, we've got to take this back, because I was like a 10-year-old little kid there, like a little fan. And I said, we've got to bottle that and take it back and say to all the staff that work that we're in a truly privileged environment and role, that when you're walking around Campbelltown Stadium or you're walking around Leichhardt, putting out bollards, walking members through, whatever you're doing, do it in a way that you are showing that you're excited, privileged, proud to be a part of it. Like I was pumped to be on the sideline watching these NFL superstars warm up, because there's 17,000 people around that fence looking at you at that one moment saying, I wish I could be you right now. And you've got to be really respectful and privileged of your position. And that's one thing I was always emphasising, and I was always grateful, no matter what the outcome, of having my time there.
Yeah. I think that's a strong message and a strong presence as well. Like, because it is important and it should be sought after.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mate, fast forward to the end of the 2023 season. There's an external review. So, who instigates the review?
Certainly not West Tigers. It was the shareholder. So West Tigers as a board didn't have a lot to do with the review at all. It was the shareholder, Holman Barnes. They're 90% shareholder in West Tigers. They were the ones who instigated the review. It was always sold as a review around the governance of the organisation. We weren't privy to it until it sort of, came out, really.
Were you interviewed as part of the process?
Yes.
Can I ask you about what they asked? Can I ask you about some of the line of questioning?
Yeah, certainly. I was all really supportive of the review, by the way. I think that, as I said, because you're reviewing your performance, the team's performance, the club's performance daily, right? You're always, looking at things for improvement. Having a substantial review like that, if it means the club's going to be operating better, 100% supportive of it. And during that process, so for 3 years or 4 years, I suppose part of the limitations, or as a CEO, you want to have as much control as possible. The board have always been very supportive of me, so I'll put that out there. But there were lines of authority and delegations of authority that didn't always give the CEO full control over everything. But with that full control or accountability or responsibility, you want to be held also completely to account.
Yeah. So there'd be decisions made at the club level that you had no part in,
Had part in,
but not full autonomy.
Correct.
Like
Absolutely.
most other businesses. So I'm right in thinking that most other businesses CEO have that pretty much full control. It's the day-to-day running.
Yeah, there's delegations of authority around spend of money. There was delegations of, the things like players at a certain level of either length of contract or salary. Coaches, stadia.
Yeah.
All those things came as recommendations from me to an extent.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's prosecuted at board level. I think when you're looking at being competitive in this environment and you need to be fierce in that competitive desire to be competitive, you've got to be fierce about it. When you take, in my experience, a player to a group of 8 or 9, there's a couple of risks around that. And the risks are that it's going to take longer, the process, and sometimes you need to be really quick with decisions and approvals because that gives you competitive advantage. So Appy was a great example when we extended Appy again. I did that myself in 24 hours, done, all good. When you run the risk of it coming out, which then, for whatever reason, that means that the player that you're talking to sits there and goes, I want to go to a club that's, information's coming out. 15, 16 other clubs suddenly know that you're in for a player and potentially at what value. So streamlining that process, streamlining the ability for the CEO to have full accountability and then or responsibility and then be fully accountable for through this review, I said absolutely. LMSC, I can't even speak, LMSC should have been only coach, head of football, CEO. End of story. That process then can be really quick. And the Jerome Luai was pretty much done that way. We went to the board for, this is the person we're after, these are some parameters, but then it was left and, Benj and I did the majority of it before I left. That was a good process. There's been other times in my time there where the lines of authority and the level of people involved made the role more challenging. And so having this review, I always felt that if it was going to streamline that process, whether it was me as CEO or someone else, if I went in there now as a CEO, it'd be heaven. Because that's what the outcome has been.
Yeah.
Like you are just bang, you make the decisions and the decisions are done.
But they've changed some of the process. But
Absolutely.
they've also changed the personnel.
Yeah.
Were you, well, firstly, did you get to see the report and the recommendations?
Never.
Were you surprised by not being able to access that?
Not surprised because I never really knew the review was going until it was going. So we were never, there was never a lot of transparency about it.
Back to one of the first questions I asked you, were alarm bells starting to ring? Did you feel like the writing was on the wall? The fact that this review is taking place and there's probably a lack of, like you say, transparency?
I'll say something that I haven't said before to anyone, that what I spoke about then, I think it's really important for people in any organisation to stay to their lane. So back in maybe June, maybe July, I could bring it up. We'd played, I think, on the Saturday. I was down at Manly on the Sunday because I live sort of over that way. And we were in the Westfield, the outdoor one at Manly there. And I was with my wife and 2 kids and we were walking around and I was on the phone for freaking like 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And they went to the movies and I sat out of the movie for the whole time on the phone. And I can't honestly remember what it was about, but it was something about the game the day before, but it was all conversations above me that I was having. And I was thinking, it's now just becoming too frustrating that not everyone can stay to their lane. And my frustration is preventing me from doing the job that I think I could be doing. And I just want to be given that chance to do the job to the best of my ability. And if I don't make the right decisions, again, I'll cop it and deal with that. So I'd actually drafted a resignation letter back in June, July, on the back of why I support the notion for the review, because it was just becoming too challenging for me not having the line of authority to do what I wanted to do all the time and quickly and with speed. And I sent that to a couple of the board members that said not to do it then and there and to keep going, give it some time, which I did. But that's why I'm not upset with the outcome. I'm really not. I think the outcome, if the outcome has been that there's better process in it, all the heavy lifting, I say that with all due respect, all the heavy lifting's been done. As I said, I'd love to be there right now. Like to enter now versus 9 years ago, I wouldn't be as grey. But the reality is, because better financial position, there is stability at ownership level, and there has been for some time. Great new facility, like world-class facility. I think the coaching staff has been committed to for a long time, and they're new, energetic, fresh, and there's a lot of support behind them. The salary cap and the roster is in a fairly healthy position, and there's always improvements, but the academy and the investment in pathways and football, like there's not much that needs to be done, which is why I say there's no reason that success shouldn't happen this year. But I felt that the club could have handled the way the review was done in a more respectful manner to certain people within the organisation. And I say, like our major sponsor and chairman at the time, to sort of elect him on one day at the board meeting, to then ask him to stand down 5 days later, to then not really have communication for a period of time, and then to finally ring him to say, this is a decision, the board's no longer. Thanks for your time type thing, and not do it face to face. This is a guy that has, and this is for any business. I'm just not talking West Tigers. Like, you've got to treat people with the utmost respect, and we don't always get it right. I get that. But this is a guy that's been a fan of the club since he was 4 and can tell you how and why he started supporting Balmain, and he's put in an enormous amount of money over the course.
His own money as well.
His own money over the course, not only to the game, but specifically to the team he loves and the club he loves. And he's supported with all his time. Like, this is a guy who's a lawyer with 70 lawyers or whatever he's got working for him. I know, as CEO, working with him as chair, how much time he gave up to help the club in a voluntary position as chair. And I've said this to him too. Like, there's things that were said in the press that created challenge, because he had the Tuesday show on SEN and everything like that. So I want to talk out of school there. But still, there's a level of respect and how to handle stakeholders like that and people like that, because this is a guy that now doesn't feel really welcome back at the club that he loves, that he's poured all this money in. And to be exited so without respect or professionalism, that's what I find alarming. And I hope, again, back to the Scotty Fulton, that they learn from that so the club becomes better for it, because there will be another Lee Hagipantelis, and they should treat a Lee Hagipantelis better than what they did, because they don't come along that often.
So when you found out, was it a phone call as well, or did you actually get sat down?
I got sat down.
But Lee didn't.
No. And you know what? Here's another one. So if they knew the outcome, I've always thought in the best interest of the club, right? And you talk about media and the narrative. If they knew the outcome, now some will say they didn't until the last moment. I'll disagree.
Sorry, the outcome of the review.
Yeah. If they knew the outcome prior, and I think Richo's come out and said on a podcast somewhere that he was approached in October. If they knew the outcome a while back, as I said to him, mate, I'm a big boy. Like, have some respect, and you could have come 4 weeks ago and said to Lee and myself and the board, this is where it's heading. Then we all could have sat there and said, you know what? We've always supported the notion of this in the best interest of the club, done a press conference, sat there and said it's our time to move on. We think fresh eyes and fresh legs and whatever else is going to be great for the club. We love the club. We've been respectful and appreciative working here. We wish the club well. Gives us then a chance to say goodbye to the players. It gives us a chance to say goodbye to key stakeholders, partners, staff. But we weren't really afforded that opportunity. And I think, there's better ways to do things to control the narrative and put it in a really, back to the Scotty Fulton thing, the outcome was going to be the outcome. This was the outcome was going to be the outcome. You could have shifted the narrative because I know there's a narrative out there that every bad decision that's ever happened to the West Tigers is Lee and I. No one else had anything to do with it.
Well, I think for me, a lot of element of leadership is having tough conversations.
Yep.
And doing it face to face. You might get criticised for saying this, but being a man, like standing up and,
which is what I said at the time.
And face to face, and I think,
and look someone in the eye when you're doing it.
and there's multiple examples of this, of where bad news is being delivered, but there's a way you go about doing it, and that bad news you might not agree with what someone's saying, but I think later down the track, what you do is you go, I didn't agree with it at the time, but I respect you for how you delivered it and how you managed it.
Absolutely. And there's a bigger picture here. There's a whole club, there's a fan base, there's partners, there's media, there's players, there's stability. There's what are other people now doing that may be thinking about coming to this club, looking at how this has been handled.
Well, that's the point, and your point as well, where you say there will be another Lee.
Absolutely.
There will be another Justin Pascoe. It's like, well, hang on,
no one that kicks as well on the field, but there may be another one. No, but I think, look, I've respected my position there. I really have. I am really proud of what we achieved. I think I was quoted in the paper, it burns me and devastates me that we never had on-field success for our fans, all the people that pour their hard-earned money in, members, corporate partners, everyone associated with the club. Because in the end, we're a rugby league team and the core product is footy and we're meant to be winning games, right? So let's not shy away from that. And I supported the notion of the review. Absolutely, because if it means now the club is set up with processes that make it more competitive compared to what was there previously when I was there, awesome for the people involved and everything else.
So that has happened then in terms of that decision-making process?
I think it has been streamlined. Again, I haven't seen the report. By report, there was 50-odd, recommendations, of which, one was probably to dissolve the board and, when that was done, to come have a discussion with me and, agree to go our separate ways.
Do you think it will manifest change, like in terms of on-field results?
Well, I think it has to. I think there's no doubt it will improve that ability to make decisions quickly and competitively, and with, and being able to adapt really quickly, and good companies, no matter how big they are, and nimble on their feet and make decisions really quickly depending on the external environment. And again, I think the club is set up 95% of the way to having everything in place to be successful. It's just a matter of now of staying true to that and believing in that, and again, not, jumping and changing for the sake of jumping and changing because, you walk down the cafe and you get a bit of pressure from Jimmy behind the counter who's been your barista every day, who's a West Tigers fan, that goes, what the hell's going on? You need to change this and that, and the last person you talk to influences your decision. It's not how the world works. You got to show a little bit more, adversity, strength of character, and sit there and say, Jimmy, have some faith, believe in what we're doing, we'll get it right, buddy.
Well, it's the hardest sport and competition in the world, in my opinion, and I've got plenty of facts to back that up. The NRL, like, it's insane. The evenness and the competitiveness and the difference between the best and quote unquote the worst, or you could say the first and 17th team, it's minimal. Sorry.
No, I was just to say that, I think also if you look at the success of the teams that win comps, they don't have a lot of injuries. They have their spine together for the majority of the time, and it's building. It's not just one season. This will be a wrong quote, but I think last year WT had 17 different spine changes. So I think having the ability this year to keep some consistency, it's going to allow Jerome at the back to be more settled. The forwards continue to do what they're doing. They've had some great players around that. There's no reason, touch wood with the youth coming through and some good fortune with injuries. I think the great Adam Duahi is about the only injury they've got at the moment. So,
yeah, there's not that much you can do about the injury gods. There really isn't. No. What advice would you give to the new incumbent and the person that takes on the role on a permanent basis as CEO?
I think continue to forge down creating West Tigers identity, connect with the Southwest and continue to connect and grow in the Southwest. I think that's really important. And support your coach. Do everything in your power to make sure that his only job is coaching and not worry about player managers, not worry about whether, the team bus is coming at the right time, not worry about whether there's enough water or hydration or supplements or gym equipment. Leave that to people that have been paid a lot of money to do their job and let him coach.
Well, that man is Benji. He gets 2 points in the first week.
Yes.
How do you think he's going to
go? Working in the time I had with Benj, certainly he's a very well-rounded individual. I think he's got enormous IQ when it comes to the game of rugby league. Obviously a generational player. But we also know that good players don't become good coaches. So I think the good thing about Benj is that he's willing to learn. He's got some great mentors with namely Wayne, Craig Bellamy and Tim when Tim was around. So I think there's some great mentors that will only put him in good stead. I think John Morris coming on board as a former senior coach will be really good for him. But I think the one thing that Benji has that will hold him in good stead is that he understands that he's got to care about his players, understand his players and get the best out of his players. It's not a blanket approach. So I think he's certainly got that Wayne Bennett approach to caring and being truly invested and connecting with every individual player. And I can see half the players, by the way, like if you say who's your idol, it's Benji Marshall.
Yeah.
So I said to him when he first started, your biggest challenge is you've got players that idolise you. Like you've got to get the best out of people that are looking up to you with these, big round eyes. But I think he's got that ability because he genuinely does want to care and get to know and work out what will drive each player individually to be successful. And he also operates with high standards.
It's interesting that he's given up so much.
In the media?
Like he was...
One of the main reasons he didn't want to work with you.
Well, he was fortunate. Like, I guess knowing him a little bit, I knew he had a bit of an eye on coaching, but to go all in like he has done, like...
You got to give him credit though, because you know why? He used to speak, and I'm sure I'm not speaking out of school, and maybe I am. If I am, I apologise, Benji. But he told me that, albeit he loved the media, he never felt it was an entire fulfilling purpose. Like it didn't give him the same purpose as playing, and only coaching would give him that same purpose. And he wanted to be, he's a freaking ambitious young man. He's only young.
Yeah.
He wants a purpose. And when he has a purpose, he's 100% in. And I think that's why I think the transition and giving up all of that was an easy one, because I think he understood what would motivate him to do it, and that was the purpose, and that was fulfilling to him. And that's an easy transition if it's going to make you happy.
It's funny what makes people tick.
Yeah.
Like,
I personally couldn't think of anything worse than being a head coach.
I had a peek behind the curtain, and there's part of me that I'd love to, but there's a big part of me that goes, I can't go all in on that.
No.
I can't go all in on that life again.
No.
Like, I'm committed to this podcast, a few of the different things, but not on the same level as that.
Yeah.
Like it is all consuming.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Similar to CEO. Like I never want to be the CEO of a company. Like what or a club. I don't get it. I don't get why you'd offer yourself up. It's sometimes you're often alone. Like you say, you can never turn your phone off. Very difficult to be present with loved ones in your most important thing is your family in their hour of need and time of crisis. There's oftentimes you'd be distracted or another little thought would pop up. I had that as a player.
And I think my advice to, businesses out there is to actually ask coach, CEO how they're doing. Because often I could count on one hand in 9 years how often I was asked how you're doing. Because usually it's you asking down, making sure everyone's all right around you. So it's really important. And, with social media and well-being and the challenges around mental illness these days, I think it's really, really important that, especially with social media and mainstream media, that we do constantly monitor what happens to players, administrators, coaches, because, I'd hate to think that there's going to come a day where it goes too far and then who's going to be responsible for that? Because, I know like poor, Brooksy, who I love to death, some of the stuff that was written about him that our media team used to come, like you just got to switch off, and it does cross the line. I think whether it's a legal thing, a police thing, a governing body thing, something has to be done where people aren't subjected to it with the continuous nature that it is, because it's 24-hour access now. And I get people are passionate, but there's also a human at the other end, and I think people need to be aware of that when they're shooting off. Look how old I am. When they're shooting off, when they're putting on, Twitter, Instagram, whatever they're doing, whatever social forums they're using, I think people need to be really mindful of people's mental well-being and happiness.
Yeah. I don't have any personal social media accounts. I've listened to people speak about it. It's not going to go anywhere quickly. It's something I don't believe I can fight, but I don't need to be a part of it. But it's a part of people's lives now. There's young adults that have grown up with it. It's a part of their life. I don't think it's personally how we communicate with one another. Like people would write things on social media that if you see them in the street, it would be completely different. It's way too easy to have an overreactive comment put out there to the world.
Which is probably a discipline in itself, right?
Yeah.
To not have it or not to respond or look at it.
Yeah. Well, I think people in positions like yourself, players, again, it's not going to go anywhere. But I think what a smart decision would be, if you're going to be part of it, then, most players have player managers or have a public profile, but also a private one.
Yeah.
The public, someone else manage that. Put on your photographs for your sponsors and all your endorsements and the clips behind the scenes of you training and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But then if you want to be part of, because players are frightened because they feel like they're going to miss out. I want to see what my mates are up to, but have your own private one.
Yeah.
And that is, I guess, my semi-solution to it, because I think I agree with what you say there about that well-being piece, and I'm sure there are companies out there that have those places to go for high-end, top-of-town corporate CEOs where they actually get asked like, hey, how are you going? Because it's so important. That's an eye-opener for me, that just how infrequent the checkups were for a person that is dealing with the most amount of scrutiny, stress, pressure within the whole organisation.
I will say the chairs were always pretty good, but that was pretty much where it ended.
Plans for the future? Sports, it's turned you off, or you want to get back in?
Oh no, I'm passionate about sport. I always have been. I'm passionate about all sports. I love being born in bred in Melbourne. Obviously, love AFL. I love rugby league. All my family's from Queensland. I love American sport, living over there for 6 years. So, and I've worked in sport for, best part of probably 17, 18 years of my career. So, love sport, but doesn't mean I'm pigeonholed to sport. I think my skills are very transferable. I did commit that when I exited from the West Tigers that I would commit a period of time just to being present. I think is a really good word that you used before. So I've maintained that commitment, getting quite used to it too, by the way. But I love being able to really commit to kids when they come home from school. So, yeah, I'll certainly start looking at getting back into it, but I'm not in a, it has to happen tomorrow. I think I deserve a small break, but I'm also an individual that doesn't want to sit idle for too long.
You have that fire still burning to...
Yeah.
Because I guess, like I say, people like Benji, like Sam Burgess, they're wired up a little bit differently, that they thrive in chaos and big decision-making and having responsibility. Yeah. You have that ilk as well.
Oh, yeah, I think I can do both, by the way. Seriously, I've never been, as I said, I've always been attracted to poor performing companies and trying to make them good or great. And the chaos around that is somewhere where I feel quite balanced amongst. But I'm also very comfortable in my current environment where, I could entertain myself all day, every day. If I catch up with mates, as I said, I've been really present with my kids during the school holidays. But there's a reality in life. Bills need to be paid, and so I'm more than comfortable going back into a chaotic environment.
And itches need to be scratched.
Yes.
And all that jazz. Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Go back to when you took the Tigers job, knowing what you know now, would you do it all again?
Absolutely, 110%.
Yeah, good.
110%.
I can tell you genuine there. Didn't take very long to answer 110%. The question whatsoever.
I would... don't get me wrong, I've made errors throughout the way. Hopefully I've learnt. I think I have learnt from most of the errors that I've made. I've never tried to repeat those errors. I've grown as an individual. As I said, I always truly respected and appreciated the opportunity. Both foundation clubs date back to 1908, and if you're not respectful to all the people that put their sweat and tears in to get both clubs to a position of West Tigers and then West Tigers to now, I think there is something fundamentally wrong with you. But I will say that the best parts of the role were outstanding, and the challenges were just having people stay to a lane and making sure that when people are in that lane, that if we all trusted each other, then great things can happen.
Well, we've got a few questions that we usually ask for each and every guest. So I'll ask you, well, it's hard. If football didn't exist, what would you do? But I guess what other vocations would you be interested in?
From a work perspective?
Yeah, from a work perspective.
Well, I've worked across many. So I've worked in private equity. I've worked in sports licensing in America. I've worked in the automotive industry. I've worked in industrial tyres before. I think any business where there's now a position where growth can happen, and I think an outcome at the end where, personally, there's, I think if you get equity in a business, that's a really good thing.
Yeah,
because there's an exit, and you exit with something instead of working for a corporate for 40 years and getting a gold pen. You exit with something, and
you got something at stake.
Yeah, and that's something different, and not everyone gets to experience that. So that might be a challenge of interest to me. I think there's certainly gaps in the sporting landscape, and there's opportunities there, whether that becomes a reality or not, both on a domestic and global front. So,
when you go from the sporting corporate world to the corporate world, do you have to change how you speak? Because obviously in sports there's terminology, there's industry language. Do you find it hard to switch on or switch off? Like there's a lot of swearing in and around
I think I've
rugby
always
league clubs
understood. I don't want to say I'm a chameleon in a bad way, but I've always understood and respected the audience I'm in front of.
Yeah.
And I think I'm adaptable, so I could speak to a group of, 20 players as I could to 20, executives at a bank type scenario. I'm not saying there needs to be a difference there, but there is.
It fascinates me that how, I do some leadership presentations, and it's like we look at the correlations between, sports and sporting performance, both as an individual and team, and how that can transfer into business. Now, some of it you can, but some of it, it's like we can't go there.
Yeah, but there is a lot that you can. Like
there is.
Like even the simple premise of teamwork and trust and respect and all those things, and having robust discussions that in a corporate workplace mightn't come up as frequently. The one difference you would find going back to corporate, I think you mentioned it earlier, in the sporting world, you're judged, no matter what you're doing off the field, you're judged, after 80 minutes every weekend. And that determines how you as a CEO, you as a fan, you as a player, like my wife used to say, the mood, depending on the result, would change for the week. In corporate world, you're not judged weekly.
Yeah.
Like you've got your maybe monthly board meetings, you've got your quarterly reviews, you've got your 6 monthly, performance management, whatever you may have, but it's not every single. So that lack of intensity around results is probably the biggest difference that I've found from corporate to sport.
Yeah. But we'll also the financial sections of the newspaper, the average person is shallow understanding of what's actually going on there. So if you're the CEO of a company and it's in the Financial Times,
and also
the people aren't reacting to that as such. But it's like, well, hang on, I saw that on the TV.
Yeah, and you can recover in a corporate world from quarter one to quarter two to quarter three to quarter four. It's very hard. You don't get the loss back ever in a game. Like those 2 points are gone, they're gone. So that
although Tigers did nearly get them back. You tried your very best.
And I could write a book about some, the hard luck stories of finishes of games that I'm thinking that wouldn't have happened to anyone else but WT at the time.
It does seem like the corporate world is a bit easier than the. Would you think that's a fair assessment, the corporate world, as opposed to the sports corporate world?
Only because, again, there's certainly the same stresses and pressures that exist because you're still trying to deliver outcomes against set objectives, but just that week-to-week intensity and the media scrutiny. So the public media scrutiny is the other one. So you couple week-to-week results with media scrutiny, and it's always going to be more intense and the pressure intensifies.
Yeah, it is. And it's just interesting. That the 2 points you tried to go back, I totally forgot about that. That was robbery. Anyway.
There's another ripper too. I'm trying to think of it. It was up at the Titans. And there was only
I remember that game.
There's only seconds left.
Yes.
And there was the final play, Titans had it, and I think it was a really low-scoring game. I think it was 8-6 or 10-8 or something.
Yeah, it was really, really low-scoring.
And the kick went up. I think it hit the...
Did it hit the crossbar?
I think it hit the crossbar. So someone was under it. Someone was waiting under it. Maybe it might have been Dame Laurie waiting under it or something. And I'm sitting there watching the trajectory of the ball. I stood up thinking, sweet, game it over. He'll catch this, no problems, because he's under it. Hits the crossbar, bounces down, and I think it might have been Red or someone, or Jock Madden, someone picked it up.
Yeah, and they spilt it.
Yeah. And Brimson, I think, ran through and just touched it. And I'm thinking, you're freaking kidding me.
I can remember that game, and like you say, if there's one team that happens to.
There's a few more I've just got to think of. And the Cowboys won.
Oh, the Cowboys one was pretty special.
But yeah,
not for the Tigers, but it was just the double whistle. Yeah. The most interesting person that you've met?
Oh, good question. In this game?
Yeah, just in any walk of life. Producer Charlie should have sent you these questions, by the way.
I didn't look at the most interesting person question. That's a good one, though.
I'm into him every single. I have to give him a reminder.
Who's your most interesting person?
Oh, that I've met.
I'm trying to think of someone that everyone would go, "Wow, that's cool," but I don't know if I can. Most interesting person.
Wayne Bennett would be up there for me.
Did I tell you the Wayne Bennett story?
Go on, I'll take that as a Tell me a Wayne Bennett story.
So we were interviewing Wayne.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure this, maybe this is a secret. Maybe I get in trouble for saying this, but and through his management, we said let's keep this really private. So this is really awkward, man. So I said I'll agree to meet him up at Twin Waters on the Sunshine Coast. So how we did it was I had to leave a key for him at reception. True story. And I was sitting in the room, and I'd only ever spoken to Wayne on the phone a couple of times leading up to this, right? Had great conversations, right? But I'm sitting there, and I made sure, though, that I booked a suite, not just a, one with a bed, right? That would have been weird.
This is like it's Borat. Or Bruno.
Well,
anyway, go on. That's where mine's. That's where mine's going. Sorry, the Bruno.
But
anyway,
I'm sitting there. I'm going nervously waiting for one of the greatest, people within the game. And you know how the click of the door?
Yeah.
With the key goes in. I hear the click of the door. I'm going, and in comes Wayne, and just that whole waiting, and I'm going through your mind going. Mm-hmm. What other industry would you be sitting there waiting for a guy trying to hide it from the media, sitting on a bed? But I moved as he came into the table, obviously. But in terms of that,
take a seat, relax.
I had an hour and a half maybe with him, and nothing other than impressive. By the way, I was meant to be interviewing him. It lasted about 5 minutes before he turned and interviewed me for the whole time, But he has got a bizarre, in my experience, there's only a short period of time, he made you feel so comforted. It was like having a father figure there that you felt protected, comforted and secured with everything that you were talking about. And so I understand why players want to play for him. I really do. I could see that in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. Not that it answers the question, but also very weird. Yeah. I never went with the Borat thinking at all.
No, it's Bruno. It's
Bruno.
He brings in this consulate from the States into his hotel room. Yeah, if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But that's where my head went.
Yeah, no. There's a couple of people in when I lived in the US, some screenwriters.
Oh yeah,
that write movies that I found fascinating because of their level of intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think it would be one of the hardest things as a craft to do, to actually sit there and write a story from scratch to end that not only are you developing characters but plots and all the way along that makes sense. And a couple of people that we met, because my wife worked for Disney over there and was sort of in the movie consumer business, we met a couple of managers to some talent over there. Listening to their stories was always interesting to me because you're so far away in Australia, listening to them talk about the talent that's very recognisable around a dinner table. It was always fascinating.
Yeah, I like hearing stories of people in different bubbles or different worlds.
So one of the best stories I have when I went over there, one of these screenwriters, and I can't remember what the studio was, but he knew I love sport. And he said, do you want to come and watch Moneyball? And it's a pre-screening. It hasn't come out yet, but it's a baseball movie, true story, yada, yada. I said, yeah, it'd be awesome. So there's 100 people in this studio only watching Moneyball. And a guy comes out and says, welcome to, I forget the studio, welcome to Studio X. We'd just like to thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoy Moneyball. And I'll come back at the end of Moneyball and we'll have a little chat if you want to hang around. Cool. So we sit down and watched the show, and I love the show. Like, love the show. I don't know if you've seen it, but then the guy comes back out and says, thanks very much for watching it. If you've got half an hour, we'd love you to stay, and there's a couple of special guests. So out comes Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. So we're sitting there asking questions of those two, as much about them as who they are, but about how they prepared for the role and what they thought of the role. And, man, it was, things like that. Experiences were just cool. And
man, what are you going to do? Say, no, oh, no, I've got to
I've got to go. Sorry. Yeah, got to go. Got Wayne Bennett to meet at the hotel. But I've had some awesome experiences with the US, taking these guys on trips, getting inner sanctum, back a house, which I've been really appreciative, from baseball to NBA to NFL, and just seeing the workings behind that normal Joe Blow off the street wouldn't be able to go in and see. And when anyone wanted to come, going back to being privileged and respectful, anyone ever wanted to come to West Tigers' new facility, I'd always proudly sit there and say, yep, bring them in. No problems at all. Let them out, as long as it didn't interrupt the workings. I used to laugh when I was over there. They'd be showing me this, the Dallas Cowboys facility, a couple of $1 billion worth of facility. And I'd always find myself saying, if you're ever in Australia and you want to come to Concord, please do, thinking, please don't come to Concord, please don't come to Concord. The old Concord, not the new Concord.
How far are we behind with the States? People talk about world-class facilities.
I think we're getting, certainly stadia. We've got some great stadia now. Just the scale over there, like the scale is ridiculous, right? I could almost walk through our one and tell you exactly where I saw it from, and where we tried to adapt similar things to different places around the world. I think in high performance, I think Americans still rely a lot on the IP that exists here in high performance.
Australia does have a very good global reputation. It's got a really good global
reputation. So I think we're okay there. I just think, you still got a couple of clubs, St George, in the process of building or getting funding for and going through. I think, gone are the days where people are in the bottom of the bowels of a stadium anymore and operating with a poor facility. Not that it determines the outcome of a team's performance.
I think there's an identity piece there. And it's something I actually spoke about when I was playing at the Dragons. Is like, well, we've just got this gym. This is who we are. Like, we're not the flash people. We're not at the top end of town.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to, my time at the Dragons, you weren't going to go there and be like wowed by this, like, quote unquote, centre of excellence. But you're not going there for the facilities. The 50 kilo dumbbell, not that I ever picked it up, was 50 kilos at the Dragons, and it was the same at the Bulldogs. It'd be the same at the new centre of excellence that the Roosters have. It'd be the same at they all weigh this. All the weights weigh the same. The same Bronco drill that every team does is still 20 meters by 40 meters by 60 meters. Like,
so that was always my message to any new player or to the playing group at the start of the year. That I never used the 50 kilo. The 20 kilo dumbbell was always, it's the same everywhere we've gone, and tried to get that mentality. And I'd easily walk out of that room into a room where politicians were or council were and sit there and say exactly the opposite. How the hell can we operate as an elite facility and an elite team in this team? We can't pick up this thing. We can't do that. It's not comparable. It's unfair. But again, you adapt to the audience and deliver the right narrative.
Yeah, mate, I still think there's a place for that bit of ID piece and connection to your community around, like, well, and even myself, I'm just a scrubber, like, from Liverpool, and that's who I am. And
it's a different terminology in Australia, that word, by the way.
Scrubber.
Different meaning,
What's it mean over here?
I don't want to say.
All right, okay. Well, that's a great place to wrap it up. I'm going to be Googling.
You had one more question I saw. I did hear this one. The spine.
Oh, the dreams. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I did read about the spine.
The dream spine.
In today's world?
In whatever world you want. So Charlie did send them. You've just missed a few out.
Yeah. He did send them, absolutely.
No, just saying, can we edit that bit out? Yeah. Tony, can we have that Charlie didn't send it?
the dream spine, Reece Walsh, fullback.
He is dreamy.
And I would say if the NRL don't utilise this kid to be the face of the game, this is a rare opportunity. You got the most marketable person I've seen in sport for a long time in Australia sitting there. 2024 Dally M winner, Ezra Mann. I just thought I'd throw it in bold prediction as well for you.
I like that.
His nemesis in the 2023 grand final, Nathan, who will just continue to do what Nathan does and has for 5 years. With all due respect for one of my favourite people in the world, Appy, the new captain of the Melbourne Storm,
Harry Grant. I like that.
And I'm to add the spine as 13 as well.
Ah, yes.
Isaiah. There's my dream 13.
Nice.
Dream spine.
I like it. I like it very much. So you got Reece Walsh, Ezra Mann, Nathan Cleary, Harry Grant, Isaiah.
Good side.
It's not too bad. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. I'm about to go and Google what scrubber means in Australia. So I'm looking forward to figuring that one out. But Justin, it's been a fascinating conversation. It really has. I really appreciate you coming on and wish you all the very best for the future in whatever role that may be.
Appreciate
I think
that.
it's been, I often like to think back and about the interview, but it's been fascinating to sit and talk about some of the positive aspects of your time at the Tigers. I think, looking back, I think you were probably, I think you were unfairly treated at times. But yeah, very much from the bottom of my heart, all the very best for the future, mate. And thank you again.
Again, appreciate the time.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Thanks,
man.
mate.